Shana Tova, good gesund to your, a wonderful new year and a wonderful new year season, really. Hopefully will carry us not only through all of Tishrei, all of September, but beyond. My name is Rabbi Lopatin, and I want to wish you everything good and a happy and healthy year on behalf of my Jewish learning. Also on behalf of my synagogue in Detroit, Kehillat Chayim, the Jewish Community Relations Council / AJC in Detroit, and personally from me and my family to you. We are all here in this crazy time of COVID. The reason I'm speaking to you and not in shul with you, or you're not in shul with me, and I'm speaking from my little study in my house, is because of, to stay safe, we have to do this. This is critical to do. I mean, there are minyanim that are meeting, tiny little services that are small, but in the mainly Orthodox world, in the conservative reform, renewal, reconstructionist world, safety comes with the permission to do things remotely. But we should feel a little bit unnerved and strange. And what I'd like to say in the next couple of minutes is that's the way we're, in a sense, supposed to feel. We are not supposed to have COVID. We are not supposed to have these life-threatening diseases that challenge us and that tragically kill us and that separate us from those we love. But we are supposed to be human beings that can deal with contradictions and that can welcome contradictions and diverse points of view. The beginning of the world that we're celebrating on Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the world, God creates light and dark, or and choshech, on the same day. And I think it's not an accident that these opposites are created on the same day. Hashem, I think, wants us to live with these opposites. It's not like Hashem only created or light and didn't create darkness, because we say every morning in the prayer for starting the day before Shema, Yotzer or Uvorei Choshech, God creates light and creates darkness. No, God created both of them to show us that they both have to be within us. You know, and the truth is, without COVID, this is a little bit of a strange year also, because the first day of Rosh Hashanah on Shabbat, in conservative Orthodox synagogues certainly, you don't blow shofar. Well, it's a little bit strange to have Rosh Hashanah, the holiday of the shofar, Yom Truah, without the shofar. And God bless our rabbis, that was a rabbinic decision, but it wasn't only a rabbinic decision. They see in the Torah, the first time Rosh Hashanah is mentioned, it's Zichron Truah. It's remembering the Truah. It's not necessarily blowing the Truah. And I can give a long talk, which I will not give, about that reason why on Shabbat we don't, and what it means to remember the shofar. But the point is, we are living with a situation where Rosh Hashanah is without shofar on the first day. And it used to be funny because there are occasionally people that come for only the first day of Rosh Hashanah, don't come for the second day. And I always felt when we had these Saturday, Sunday Rosh Hashanahs that you're going to miss out on the second day. You're going to miss out on the shofar. Come the second day. And we will hear the shofar on the second day, or we have heard it. So Rosh Hashanah within itself, when it mixes with Shabbat, has this strange, diverse contrast of sometimes there's blowing shofar on the first day and sometimes not. In fact, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are complex days. Are they joyous holidays? Well, you're supposed to enjoy yourself on Rosh Hashanah. You're supposed to eat well. Honey, challah and honey and all the other things we have, honey cake and all these wonderful things. So we're supposed to enjoy ourselves. You're not supposed to fast on Rosh Hashanah, and there are opinions you're not even supposed to cry on Rosh Hashanah. And yet, the Talmud says we don't say Hallel, we don't say this joyous song of praise to God that we say on other holidays, because the books of life and death are open in front of God. How can we be singing and how can we be so joyous and so maybe confident and so much hubris? So in the sense, it's a very these are scary days. These are Yom Hadin. This is the day of judgment. On the other hand, we're supposed to enjoy ourselves. Yom Kippur you might think is monolithic. And sometimes when you're in synagogue and there's serious tunes and all that. And yet, Yom Kippur is also, the Mishnah says it's the happiest day of the year. And it used to be that women and men would run through the vineyards and do very appropriate things, and I'm sure everything was fine on the up and up, but it was a romantic day of relationship building. And so it was the happiest day of the year, but of course we know our prayers on Yom Kippur. We think about the 10 martyrs who were killed in the Roman period. We think about Yizkar, those who we have lost. We think about Netana Tokef, who will live and who will die. Oh, there's so, and that story, who wrote, Rav Amnon, who wrote Netana Tokef, terrible, sad story. Also, I mean, there's a lot of crying on Yom Kippur and legitimate crying. So these days, in a sense, if we really observe them to the fullest, they're a combination of the contradiction. They're a contradiction like we have on the first day of creation with light and dark, and in this era of COVID. And in fact, the biblical parts of our holiday, when we read the Haftorah from Isaiah, actually from on Yom Kippur, the Haftorah says, is this the kind of fast day that I want? Will you just abstain from food? God says, that's not what I want. What I want is moral and ethics and ethical behavior. And, you could run out on right after that and say, God, look, it's right in Isaiah. God doesn't care about us fasting, and let's break our fast in the middle of the day. Let's say we normally read the Haftorah about 1 o'clock or something. Let's eat then. No one does that because we live with the contradiction that we still fast. I think in Israel, it's like 90% of Israelis fast on Yom Kippur, or something like that. Very high percentage, and a high percentage in America also. So we do the fasting, and yet we know that our prophet excoriates us to really try to keep the morals and not forget about the morals, which are the more important part of this fast day, of Yom Kippurim. So we have that contradiction. And I would say, I'd add a little bit that it's not just a contradiction. It's not just putting fasting, abstaining from food, together with the real ethical imperative of Judaism together, and mixing them in an uncomfortable mix sometimes, but it's also the question mark. So Isaiah says, Hakazeh Yom Evcharehu. Is this the fast that I want? Question mark. We have to have those question marks within us. At the end of the book of Jonah, read almost towards the end of Yom Kippurim, God says, is this, you want to destroy Nineveh. You, Jonah, they're bad. They made some bad mistakes, and you want to destroy the city. And God says, should I destroy that city? Ani lo achus al Nineveh ha'ir hagdolah. Should I not have mercy on Nineveh, this great city? I'm coming to you from Detroit. I have to say, Detroit has a wonderful population, a Chaldean population. I think only Detroit and San Diego in America basically have the big communities. And Nineveh is really their city, like their capital city. And I joke with them, I've joked before that, our Nineveh almost got destroyed by our prophet, by Jonah. But in any case, God says, no, I want to have mercy on them. And ends the book of Jonah with a question mark. Do we have those question marks in our lives? We are passionate. I hope we're passionate. And if we're not, let's get passionate. This is a world that needs our passion and needs our activism. But it needs our passion and activism with the question mark, with contradictions, not monolithic, not all in one direction. Sometimes it's easy to go in one direction. Sometimes things are so frustrating that you shift over to the other direction. But luckily in our world, there are contradictions. I wrote an article a few weeks ago, maybe months now. We lose track of the time with COVID, about how Zionism is a liberation movement. And as a Zionist, I say out loud, Black Lives Matter, and I call for liberation and racial equality and everything that we're trying to get as part to change this country, to make this a moral country, more moral. And yet, when you talk about Black Lives Matter, many people associate it certainly with the movement or the movement for Black Lives. There's anti-Semitism there. There are anti-Semitic voices. And some of these rallies, which are important rallies, even peaceful ones, then you get people down with Israel and people even doing graffiti on synagogues, which is horrific. So you get a mixture of, I'm passionate about this issue, and yet there are contradictions coming at me from people in this movement and from statements. And then even our beloved state of Israel. Now, who of you loves Israel? I hope we all love Israel and are passionate Zionists. And yet everyone has a problem with what Israel's doing here, what Israel's doing there. I mean, we're so excited about peace with the UAE and the airline El Al flying to the UAE over Saudi Arabia. And it's funny, it wasn't beautiful. I just said, I'm so excited. I sent the itinerary in Facebook. And someone wrote back correctly, like, El Al, Oigewalt, I couldn't get my money back, and this and that. And I'm not getting involved here in a sermon with El Al, but I'm sure that all of us have these contradictions. We love something, we're proud of something, we're proud of someone, and yet there are contradictions. What policies Israel has towards the law of return, converts, refugees, what policies the United States has all towards refugees. We love America, we love Israel, and yet we have to deal with question marks, and we have to deal with contradictions, and we have to not surrender. Isaiah doesn't tell us to surrender. The book of Jonah doesn't tell us to surrender. We have to be passionate. We have to make decisions, but we have to make decisions within this world of contradictions. Your rabbis, your leaders, your ritual committees had to make decisions about how to celebrate as a synagogue, as a temple, these holidays. And these are not such easy decisions. I'm in an Orthodox synagogue, our services are also cut significantly. And I hope that it's a difficult decision, that it was a difficult decision, that it's not just cut this, cut that, cut out these ancient prayers from 1,000 years ago, these beautiful songs that we used to sing. No, it's not easy. And there are difficult decisions that we have to make. But we have to make them with a question mark. We have to bring in the light and darkness from the first day of creation. Yotzer or uvorei choshech. We have to bring in these contradictions and make it work for us and not act passionately, monolithically. We make a decision and that's it, and we ignore the question marks. Question marks have to remain within us. I'm reading this book, Ward Farnsworth, Classical English Style. It's actually I can't read it all in one setting, but it's a really interesting book. One of the ideas it talks about is that in English there are Anglo-Saxon words that come from the older English, and then there are Latin words that come from the Norman Conquest, French, sort of influenced English, and the Anglo-Saxon roots are short. They're like gut, the word gut, your gut tells you. The Latin roots are longer, like stomach. So if you want to, you can mark something, mark it, or you can delineate it. Mark is Anglo-Saxon, delineate is Latin, from the Latin root. And what Farnsworth argues is don't just choose Anglo-Saxon roots. Those are easier, they're punchier. Sometimes people make some things clearer, but for good English, for good expression, have a combination of Latin, broader Latin words, and punchier Anglo-Saxon words. And mix your sentence up like that. Somebody talks about a Saxon finish. You talk at length about something, then boom, end with a punch. As a rabbi, I have to learn that with sermons, ending with a punch. But in any case, the goal there is not to be monolithic, is to have this combination of different words from different origins. And this Rosh Hashanah season, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, all the holidays, when we're suffering through COVID, and I want to, thank God we're here, we've survived COVID up until now, and God willing, we'll have a healthy, safe year. when we're living with all these contradictions with COVID, and I'm with my family, I'm not with some of my family, we can't hug, we can see each other, I connect with some friends that I haven't connected with in decades, and yet others I want to see and I want to be with. It's contradictory time. Let's try to embrace some of these contradictions, and not only embrace, welcome, bring them in. We have got to have question marks within ourselves. We have got to have diverse viewpoints within ourselves, and then we can act. But let's bless ourselves with question marks. Let's bless our activism with understanding that there are diverse opinions and diverse views together that come together and enable us to be the Jews and the human beings that we need to be. I wish everyone a year of health and pleasantness and joy and diversity and question marks. Beautiful question marks that maybe tickle us, that bring us joy, that maybe make us laugh, that might make us cry as well, but ultimately make us better people. Let's embrace Or and Choshech, light and dark. Let's embrace our English Latin roots and our English Anglo-Saxon roots. And let's embrace each other and each other's contradictory ideas. And together we'll give all of us and we'll give our world a happy and healthy new year. Shana Tova.